All right, we live now. Oh, what it do, everybody? Today is another good Sunday. Y'all here with the Black Anglo-Saxon, and I am going to be talking about the left, the District of Columbia. So, as y'all funnel in, take your seat. We're going to be here for a little minute, not a super long minute, slight minute, but we're going to go ahead and get through it real quick. If you're here with me, man, like the video, share the video, leave a comment. We're going to be having a conversation today. Again, right now, I'm going to bring up my man, Quan, in a few minutes once we get the conversation started. But first, I'm going to start off with the first article that kind of made me want to have this conversation. The other day, I was scrolling on Twitter. Shout out to Malik Abdul. He posted it. And it's an article that talks about, DC progressives possibly overtaking what they consider the left, which I don't necessarily see it that way, which is why I'm doing air quotes, because people who fall within this ilk that I'm about to start naming, it'll start making sense as to why I'm doing the air quotes. But this Zoran Mamdani individual who has won the primary in New York, right? And so now everybody is, having this kind of powwow moment, if you want to call it that, with the left feeling like they can, get a little bit of their power back after the blurbs that we'll be discussing today. Because me personally, I feel like, if it were not for Andrew Cuomo's actual kerfuffle and his essay cases, we wouldn't actually be here, and it wouldn't have actually paved the way, because unfortunately, and we can have this conversation for another day in terms of Clyburn and all of the other individuals who backed him after actually condemning him, which I think was disgusting. Because again, I'm not a fan of Andrew Cuomo, and as we're having this conversation, it's not necessarily about specifically what's going on in New York, but more about what this moment in time is and what I also need leftists to realize, because I've also seen a number of leftists talking about the fact that there is no war within the Democratic Party. Understand that the Democratic Party and parties in general are vehicles for ideological movements. If you do not see yourself at war within the Democratic Party, I am sorry to tell you, you do not understand politics, and this is why the left does not have power. Some of you are going to be mad at me, which is okay. I had these conversations in person. I had these conversations in private. Some of you are going to understand who are also on the left because they feel similarly to me as it relates to people continuing to try to, quote unquote, play the game within the democratic confines that are currently built at this moment, which is the old guard still trying to hold on to power, which is why we see 60, 70, 80-year-old people pushing back on this dude, Zoran Mamdani. And again, I'm not in New York, but this first article that I'm going to go ahead and bring up is going to talk to the specifics around bringing that type of policy and political energy, if you, for lack of a better word, to DC. And what I want to say before I even get into it is you all will not and cannot beat Mayor Muriel Bowser. You cannot do it. And I'm going to go over the reasons after I read the article, but the olive branch was extended in DC, but also understand that DC has a very different landscape when it comes to its political leanings. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get into this right here. And this is going to be an article from Axios, and it is titled Progressives, hold on, let me bring this up to the top. Progressives want their own Zoran Mamdani. Can everybody see that? Can you see that, Quan? Just to be sure. Can you see that on the screen?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So it says Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani shock win in New York City mayoral primary has locals buzzing. It happened in DC. Why it matters? I declared DC progressives are over earlier this year, but Mamdani's Get It Done brand of politics and his campaign messaging is opening a new conversation on the left. The big picture. Mayor Muriel Bowser considers a fourth term for 2026. Lefties are studying Mamdani's playbook. which they need to be doing, is studying Muriel Bowser's playbook. Because whether you disagree with her or not, she cannot be beat by individual like Mamdani. Like I said, I'm gonna get into it. Democratic Socialist, he beat what I'm hearing the most talked about name in the last 24 hours has been Janice Lewis George, the council member who represents uptown neighborhoods like Brightwood and the Georgia Avenue corridor. And Janice is a good council member. She's a Democratic Socialist and beat a Bowser acolyte in 2020 for the full war seat. They're going to be referring to Brandon Todd. Whether she wants the job is another question, but she could make a play for a Mamdani-inspired run. And then they refer to Robert White, which would be a rematch. Me personally, I wouldn't necessarily consider Robert White an actual leftist. I would consider him more centrist, but he also has some different things that going up against Bowser that is going to cause a little bit of drawback. But he also recently voted the other way. They talking about Initiative 82. If you want to check it out, I did a video on Initiative 82 with my own personal opinions. But I also talked to council member elect Mike Austin, who's running for Ward 8, about Initiative 82. There are two different opinions on it. That's going to be a bill that is going to be head-weighed and speared by the left flank of the party. And what about former councilmember Alyssa Silverman, who based in this article, says she is not interested in that. Again, Alyssa Silverman, I will also consider more center. DC does not really have true leftists in the sense of what it is you all are thinking about. So I want people to kind of keep that in context. A wild card candidate no one's talking about right now, national political figure or lesser known, Aaron Palmer, who is an ANC commissioner. DC has ANC commissioners, which is the lowest level of our council legislative apparatus, which would kind of almost be like an assemblyman if you were to go to an actual state. So that is that. And I'm going to go ahead before I bring in my man Quan. First and foremost, the mayor is going to be hard to beat because the mayor has delivered. And not only has she delivered, she has given leeway to a lot of left-leaning policies that, in my personal opinion, in some cases, I haven't necessarily agreed with. So, for example, when you talk about sanctuary cities, me personally, I would have put that at the top. Let's take that away. Because we should have never been doing that in the first place. New York got hit with a similar situation when it comes to that. Just as they mentioned in the article with Initiative 82. Again, Initiative 82 was something that was based on and pushed by the left as it relates to raising the actual minimum wage for tip wage workers, right? And so in doing that and moving forward on that, we have different policies and different initiatives that have come out of the left flank where now DC, specifically the mayor, which is, again, is being repealed right now, is having to clean up left messes, defund the police. We kind of touched it, but not really. Then we had the Black Lives Matter thing in the middle of the road, which again, y'all can have it. I'm not necessarily here for it. But the mayor has been consistent in her track record. There are a lot of wins. And for those of you who might say, well, you know, you're biased in this situation. Fair. But I have also pushed back on certain things and had conversations about certain initiatives that I don't necessarily agree with. Now, even when it comes to people who might say, well, what has she done for residents who don't necessarily look like me and you? Now, if you here in DC, you may not necessarily understand what I'm about to say. DC has the most programming for residents. And when I say programming, I'm talking about access to funds, to resources. She has a little green book where if you become CBE, which is a certified business enterprise, you can access all of these things. And we talking about from the bottom, where we talking about our healthcare services, all of those things moving through. Now, all of those things have been intact and been consistent. We also have SYEP for all of my people who love Marion Barry, which again is okay. She has extended that and built on top of that legacy. It is going to be very hard Because again, I understand that affordable housing is a chief issue, but not a big enough issue that I think is going to topple Mayor Bowser's reign. Because again, she and other people on the council and other elected officials might not necessarily be willing to have this conversation with people as it pertains to affordable housing, but it's really hard to manage affordable housing when everybody wants amenities and when everybody wants stadiums and everybody wants all of these things that intrinsically raise prices, even if we increase stock. If you want a stadium, if you want multiple schools, if you want multiple playgrounds, if you want stores and metros right outside of your house and all of these different things, I get it. The affordability issue is a concern, but it's not a big enough concern that it's going to allow for a left-leaning candidate to come in and win that. Because also understand that in DC, most people, the Beltway as at large, this whole little metropolitan area, Fairfax, PG County, DC, all of these little areas are conservative. Conservative. They're not as liberal as you think they are. And I need people to realize that. The left needs to understand that they had a moment. When y'all was doing all that beefing with Jimmy Dore and AOC was getting cursed out on the floor by Nancy Pelosi and being told to shut up, those were y'all moments. This right now was a singular thing that has happened and he was able and is able to take advantage of a moment because Andrew Cuomo was just so disgusting. I don't think you get that if you have a candidate who is ironclad, because now I hear that, what's his name? And again, I'm not a New Yorkian. Mayor Eric Adams is running on the ticket as an independent coming up just due to everything that went on. But what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna bring in my man Quan. So, you know, everything that I just discussed, you give me your opinion, bro. Let me know what you think about everything. And let's kind of start at the point of what you think about a leftist winning in DC and the moment and opportunities that they've already had to kind of hold power in these specific spaces. It's on you. Hold on. Well, I don't know. I'm not muting you. There
You
you
hear
go.
me?
Yep.
All right. So it's interesting because DC's, to my knowledge, has always been Democratic, but not necessarily serving the left. So in that case, it is interesting. But I mean, to answer your question, I feel like just overall, if I'm looking at what's going on, I just feel like when you talk about the mayor, because that's what we're addressing, right? Like when you talk about the mayor. So for me, when we talking about like the mayor and what she has going on, I think that she's benefited greatly due to the fact that a lot of the other candidates are so compromised. Just throughout her tenure, we've seen so many potential candidates just go through all types of just controversies. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go in too deep with those certain controversies because I know some of them things still kind of cut deep and it's affecting actual candidates that are on the ticket. But we've seen a lot go down. The one that comes to mind is I forgot his name, but it's the white guy. I think he was in like Northwest. He was there a long time and he got caught up in a lot of those contracting and all of that type of stuff. So she does deliver, she does her job, but I feel like a lot of her opposition shoot themselves in the foot in terms
You
of
talking about Jack Evans?
yeah.
Yeah.
He would have
Same.
been probably the number one, in my opinion, that would be able to go toe to toe. Because nobody, in my opinion, knows DC more than he does. But his hands are tied. Just like a lot of the politicians that would oppose,
No.
their hands are tied. So she just has a perfect mixture of her being able to deliver on basic things, walk back certain things, because even though she did do the Black Lives Matter, she also refunded the police as well. So
But that's what I'm saying though. Like it would be really hard for them to come in now because it kind of puts them in a position. What argument would a leftist or individual like that have against the mayor? She's literally conceded to a lot of their proposals when it comes to policy solutions, when it comes to the rhetorical pieces, when it comes to the whole character and showmanship that the left likes to do. Because we all know when it comes down to it, they're not going to bust nothing. The centrists and the old guards are the people who are willing to actually bang when it counts. And right now, because again, like you said, she's done all of that. It's like, so what do you even say? What is the argument? What's the political campaign? Because you can't come to DC and say, oh, well, you know, police brutality, blah, 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 blah. And law in DC. So their community members, MPD, man, they too nice. So you can't use that argument. You can't use the, oh, you're a corporatist, because most leftists are also corporatists. Yeah. They also taking money from PACs. They also moving in a way in the same fashion in which they critique these centrists for moving forward. So it's like, hold on. Y'all criticize Bowser, y'all criticize Biden, y'all criticize all of these different people, but at the same time, you literally move just like them now. And it's like, do you all not see yourself? Like you literally, the other thing, because hold on, because I do want to bring this up. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was that leftists have allowed themselves and their brand to be co-opted. And I say that because when you allow people to, like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and all of these different people to be called progressive, you literally allowing them to co-opt. And because it's like, what is a progressive now? What is a leftist? So it's like the identity has been so muddy that they haven't even strategically understood that they should have pushed back on certain people being identified within their clan. Because now you all literally are just as bad as the centrists that you're fighting against in the eyes of the people, in the eyes of most people. Because again, you got your democratic socialist people who go and ride to the rockers. And I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, I think they're delusional. I think they missed out on a moment that has passed them, unfortunately. When they had literally numbers with Cory Bush, when Bernie was at the height of when Bernie was at the peak, when he could have held Joe Biden to the fire before giving him his phone book. And when I say giving away the phone book in DC and the Beltway, your phone book is your collateral, is your capital. When I'm giving you my people and I'm saying, here, vote for this person, you supposed to get something for those people. Shit, if not for yourself. Something. He didn't get anything. He got cheated out of it openly. And it's like, sir, what are you doing? You're supposed to be the leader of this. And now we're having an oligarchy tour. Because again, AOC has endorsed this dude. Elizabeth Warren has endorsed this dude. But both of these are people who would be considered leftist, progressive. But what do they actually stand for at this point? And that's the whole thing. That's the whole problem. And why I'm like, it doesn't even really have or hold any weight at this point, because what are we talking about? How do you all think that you're going to be centrist when your whole strategy has been about kowtowing to them at every step of the way? I still have people who are literally willing to play a game that they have been openly cheated on. How, Sway? How? Tell me how.
I think the worst thing that happened to the left was the fact that January 6th happened. Because when January did, it took the right that only fought on an ideological sort of playing field, and it put them in the space of these people actually did something with their rhetoric. And it was like, once that happened, it put the left in a position where you can no longer just give words, because we've seen the right go as far as damn near dying about what they believe in. Like, You know what the Capitol is all about, scene.
Yeah.
You go up there right now,
Watch
point
you.
their fucking guns at us, and we are dead meat. But when them people went up there and literally took the flag and waved it in the camera, I said game, set, match. Because all the left got is words, revolutionary words that they can't do nothing but monetize at this point. Because they not gonna stand by anything other than just revolutionary rhetoric. Whereas these people, they went in the building, took the flag, through the books, made politicians hide in their offices over what these people believed in. And I don't know a leftist on US soil that's willing to do 0.5% of what them crazy right wing people did. That just, it streamlined everything for what we got going on now. The right essentially destroyed the left with just action alone.
It's really funny that you frame it that way because, I made a post the other day about James Carville's comments about, getting the Democratic Party to move back to the right. And that's always kind of been the answer throughout, history, is them moving to the right to try to capture and fight for that beloved unicorn of a vote that is basically the white conservative vote, or the white vote that sits at home and wait to be pandered to. But it is literally, and again, I say that, I don't disagree with that, because that's how politics should be. Talk to me nice. So I say that and understand that that's not something that I am inherently against. Like, what you gonna do for me? But it's interesting that you bring that up, because part of what I think people have missed in the moment of is that, see, Donald Trump and the whole MAGA movement has not really distorted politics, but pulled the veil from it. And what I mean by that is, in this moment, which kind of compiles on to the losses that the left have taken from centrists, is like, we have a person, Donald Trump, even though you might not necessarily like what he stands for or agree with what he stands for, he has shown us that the whole notion of I can't do what I can't do, it can get done. Because we also not going to sit here and act like the last couple presidents haven't just tried to legislate their way through executive orders, which is something that I don't necessarily agree with. But I understand and respect the fact that he has removed the veil in that way of, like, pure rhetoric is not going to get you anywhere anymore. Pure just, yeah, I'm going to tell people what they want to hear is not going to get you anywhere anymore. Because what he's also done in doing that and taking advantage of all of the myths that have been a part of American history to build his platform, he is also giving the people, the very people who he lied to, his ass to kiss. So it's like, no longer the veil is just constantly being ripped from people's eyes. The disillusionment is like tenfold in America right now. So all of the whole notion of, well, we just go and say what we gotta say. And again, the thing is, I don't disagree with leftist policies. I'm for Medicare for all. I'm for taxing the rich and the wealthy. I'm for mostly all of the things that they're talking about. It's just the way in which they talk about trying to get to them for the most part. And it goes to your point that y'all not willing to do it. I've literally been in these spaces with people. People will be like, oh my God, they don't want to stand next to me because I'm considered radical. When I'm like, what the hell? I just be calling out what I see on both sides, the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party. Because what people aren't realizing is that, look, the left, you all lose credibility every time you sit back and watch Democrats just run amok and don't say anything. You lose credibility when you do that. If you're going to call it straight down the middle, and you will literally build your coalition that way. But sitting back and watching Joe Biden and watching Kamala Harris and watching everybody do what they did, And then y'all say nothing, and then now everybody's magically got a voice again on the left. Everybody magically can speak again. It's like, what's that movie with the motherfucker, y'all the Little Mermaid, y'all Ariel out here. Motherfucking Big Ursula that took y'all voice. But now y'all got it back because Donald Trump in office, because he an easy target. He's just a maniac. But when it's your team, it's your party, you also gotta have that same level of energy. Like even Jasmine Crockett, right? Ma'am, what are we doing? What are we doing here? You can talk all day for literally everybody who cried about Project 2025, right? And I'm not saying it's wrong to cry about it. But for the elected officials who actually sit in positions and seats of power to do something about it, where the hell is Project 2026, Project 2027, Project 2028, shit, Project 2035? Why wasn't it a Project 2017? Y'all want to fearmonger the people and say, oh, well, you know, y'all need to be scared of this, and they've been working on this. Well, shit, if y'all knew they was working on it, where was y'all at? What was y'all doing? What was y'all?
That's a fact,
Again,
man. That's a fact. And it's like,
because
and it's like
he
saying,
equally a maniac.
and it's like saying, I do you want better. Like the fact that most of the policies that Democrats have championed have been on the backs of like real black people and real people, poor people who had to die for these policies. Like I remember I was reading about like anti-lynching bills and all of those things. It was all backed by the fact that we was willing to die for a lot of these things. Social Security, people was dying for that. The 5-day work week. These are all Democratic led things, like the pension and the all of these things were things that they went out of their way and went in the streets and protested and died and all types of things. Even the border, immigration, it was a war fought for those things. And people weren't just spewing rhetoric about trying to get these things passed. So it's like, I feel my thing is that the Democrats don't even know or don't even use the actual history behind the actual policies that they've pushed. I love the shit out of Social Security, but they sat and let that shit let that shit die off. I love the shit out of the pension, but they sat and watched that shit die. So these very people and these very things that they champion, when they had the chance to do something about them, they let it die off. Nobody's gonna have a pension from
You
our
wanna know why? You
generation.
wanna know why they let it die off, bro? Because they take advice from people like James Carville. And I watched James Carville sit on News Nation and literally tell Chris Cuomo, let it burn so that we can take advantage of the crisis that come after. Let the people suffer so we can take advantage of the crisis that come after. Let it go to full shit. I watched him sit on News Nation and say that. And that's his whole strategy around it. And that's the type of people who lead the party. Because again, even Barack Obama, he not saying nothing. Everybody, like, I seen an article from, I want to say, was it the Atlantic or the New Yorker, about like why Obama ain't saying nothing. Because it's like Obama can't say nothing. Obama created the pathway for this to take place. Because also, everybody want to talk about, again, Kamala Harris and why she lost because she was a black woman and blah, 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 blah. But nobody want to have a conversation about the fact that Obama was also a part of the reason that she lost, because when you have a black president come into the office and literally all you do is nothing and everything for everybody else, everybody is like, shit, I don't want no black White House. Yeah, that equals scam. I don't want that. I'm good. I'd rather just take the white person, because everything that happened as a result of Barack Obama created this moment. So why would Barack Obama speak about any of this? He can't, because he is also indicted in this moment because, again, Trump has taken advantage of the American myths. And what do I mean by Trump has taken advantage of American myths, right? So I was laying on my bunk, right? Trump came out and said that black Americans specifically, jobs are being taken by illegal immigrants. And I watched a whole campaign of bourgeoisie Negroes getting up talking about not my black job, not my black job, not my black job, but not understanding that, look, he's talking about the rule and not the exception. If you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you will see that we are still overrepresented in food service and hospitality positions. We want that to be not the rule. We want your exception to become the rule, but instead of saying, you know what, damn, let's force him use this moment to have a conversation about why we are still overrepresented in food service and hospitality, we chose, or they chose, the bourgeoisie elite Negroes chose to say, let me, not my black job. And what myth did Trump weaponize when he did that? Black exceptionalism.
Man,
Black exceptionalism, because
it's
he
been killing
understands
us.
it more than anybody. He was around Diddy, probably baby oiling people up when baby oil was fresh off the market. He understands. He been around all these Negroes wanting to just strive and be everything. Cool. Kiss the ring. Kanye bootlicking, going in there, drawing airplanes and nonsense and foolery. And you know I used to love Kanye, but that nonsense foolery, I can't. But again, people think that Trump is stupid, but he's not. They mistake the fact that he does not understand policy and governance for him not being able to understand anything. No, he understands marketing and he understands manipulating the American people because he has been selling to the American people his whole life. He know that y'all like the BS, the nonsense, the tomfoolery. Come on, man. Come on, man.
And just to piggyback on what you're saying, I want to go to a larger point with the left. Because I was on TikTok and they've been having this discussion about like how that mayor and Donald Trump are similar because they're both like really in tune to capitalism, and it's like the left is always going to lose because they refuse to be practical. They refuse to be practical. And it's like, I get it. Y'all want to be anti-capitalist so bad. And y'all want to dismantle this and dismantle that. And it's like, yo, we live in a capitalistic society. How are you going to advocate for people being anti-capitalist and have this big revolution with no capital? It's impossible.
See, I wouldn't even be mad at them if they was genuine in how they moved about it. But don't talk about you anti-capitalist and then attach yourself to all of these capitalist endeavors and monetization processes and stop it. Cut it out.
Listen, see, the only real anti-capitalist that I ever known in my life, in our lifetime, was the what are they called? Not the Mormons, but the Amish. The Amish was probably the only ones I knew.
About that bag. They be
I mean,
money,
they are
man.
now, but back in the day, they was like, look, we not doing cable TV. We not doing the radio. We're not doing none of the tomfoolery for a long time. They just getting around to being capitalists in like the recent 10 plus years. But like, you want to be anti-capitalist, but you're using capitalistic TikTok. You're using capitalistic Facebook. You're using capitalistic Instagram. You monetizing. You doing like y'all are just out here building platforms, talking revolutionary talk
That's
and
it,
anti-capitalistic talk. So you probably the biggest capitalist. You might as well
man.
admit to it.
Look, and honestly, a lot of them, if they could be the oppressor, they would. It's really just I want to swap out with the oppressor because a lot of the stuff don't even be making sense. It's like y'all talking about killing imperialism, but y'all walking around calling yourself kings and queens and shit. What are y'all talking about? Come on, man. Come on, man. You want to be sovereign, but you walking around talking about you against imperialism. But at the same token, at the same time, like you said, you're using all of the platforms. Man, look, it's so crazy and wonky that they'll support stuff like AI, but then be crying about issues within the labor supply chain. This is going to be an article from the Atlantic, and it's kind of talking about it's kind of talking about what we been speaking to for real in terms of the actual ability for them to not necessarily understand what has transpired and what has taken place at this moment. So this is a article from The Atlantic. I made some little highlights here just so you know I can stay on track. This is what the left keeps getting wrong. Democrats should not dismiss Trump's win as a result of sexism and racism alone. Now, I just want to speak to these little quick pieces real quick. It says Barack Obama could have overcome the handicap imposed on Kamala Harris when she emerged valiantly from the wreckage of the weekend at Bernie's campaign this summer, which her own administration had so brazenly tried to sneak past the vote in public. Now, the problem with this is Barack Obama would not have overcome this time because y'all don't understand that this is a very different moment. And people literally are in this moment in part and parcel because of Barack Obama, like we just discussed. If you just joining us, go ahead, like the video, share the video, leave a comment. We talking about the left and how they blew multiple opportunities. Again, not that we're against the policies of the left, but in terms of holding power, y'all blew that multiple times. And y'all still blowing it, actually, because y'all leaders walking around doing oligarchy tours. But let's go down. It says supporters argued that the order was simply pledging that the administration would enforce previously established legal protections for LGBTQ people, but critics saw it differently. As the author Abigail Schreier wrote on Twitter, Biden unilaterally eviscerates women's sports. Any educational institution that receives federal funding must admit biologically male athletes to women's teams, women's scholarships, etc. And this is just, again, not understanding the moment when, in fact, you have lost a position in terms of the transgenderism, in terms of the illegal immigration. You, as a politician in these spaces, gotta understand when it's time to, not necessarily, I would say, give up, but when to not necessarily try to use an issue to platform yourself into office. And I say that because a lot of people didn't think that the transgenderism commercials were impactful, but they were. Because again, if you are showing that over and over again, saying that, you know, he, her, they, them, and talking about the fact that you have people able to get transgender surgeries while they're in prison, while people are starving, there's a huge disconnect in terms of what you are seeming to misprioritize. And that's what it highlighted. It wasn't so much about the transgenderism, it was the misprioritization. Because if people's lives was okay and cool, they probably wouldn't have gave two damns, to be honest. Mm-hmm. People was able to buy what they wanted to buy and shop what they wanted to shop and have sex with who they wanted to have sex with. They wouldn't have cared. But the problem was is that you got people in shambles and they, oh my God, you can be in prison and get your sex changed and I can barely get goddamn health care on the outside. How? But they saw it as, oh, you're what do they call it? Anti-trans. No, it's a prioritization thing. Because again, that should be, hold on, bro. That should be an actual customary, I forget the technical term, surgery. That shouldn't be a part of a package, if you ask me. And then again, the women's sports, you're losing on that issue because even people across the when people across the political spectrum says, you know what, I'm not so for that, that means back off. That mean is you got Democrats, Republicans, far left-leaning Republicans, far left-leaning Democrats, far right-leaning Republicans, all kind of being like, you know what, I kind of feel you on this one. Back off. Political strategy, back off. Duh. Then it says Donald J. Trump in 2024 presidential election, that is to say, Trump improved with every single racial group across the country except one. He performed slightly better with black voters. Overall, blah, 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 and significantly better with everyone else, particularly Latinos, 46%, who gave them their vote. And I wanted to go down to the bottom because it was something that we had started talking about, Quan, that I wanted to kind of bring back up and reframe, and about Donald Trump taking advantage of the myths and the ethos that exist in America that have been fed to people as lies to manipulate and take advantage of them, are now coming back to haunt and bite your ass in the ass, as John Witherspoon told goddamn Ice Cube and Friday. That get you right there. But the framing did not work for any. I'm thankful that victimhood didn't win as a strategy. One of my oldest and closest friends, a black man who doesn't have a college degree, messaged me after Trump's victory. Now, I'm gonna go ahead, pull you back up, Quan. Now, the reason why that is able to happen, people are like, oh, well, how did he shave all those voters off? What myth is that? Is that black people are running in the race Olympics, in the oppression Olympics. No, fool. Y'all don't understand that it's not an oppression Olympics. It's just an acknowledgement of history that has brought us here to this point. But see, Trump understands that people don't want to be perceived as a victim or in victimhood or chasing the victim status. And he exploits that. So it's like, nah, you can be better. You can be good. It's all on you. And people buy that, not realizing that Donald Trump, for what it's worth, came from a relatively wealthy family who was able to give him money, pass down access as well as resources. And that is what gave him the ability to do that. But he understands that the myth and the ethos of black people not wanting to be seen as victims, he can take advantage of that. So there are a lot of things that go into that, and a lot of things that people don't necessarily want to acknowledge as it relates to, again, Donald Trump has taken advantage of the tactics and the showmanship, the political showmanship of the left, while being a full, literally jack in a box. Because he ran a campaign on social, like he almost ran a campaign that you would have thought he was a socialist. I'll put it like that. He was for the people.
This is absolutely true, Scene.
So bought into the ethos of America, into the ethos of meritocracy, into the ethos of, I'm not no victim. I can do it all on my own. People still believe it's self-made. Ain't nobody self-made. What are y'all talking about? But guess what? He know how to tap into that. So he was able to shave off a lot of voters. He understand that rhetorical speech. He took that from the left, because the left does a lot of rhetoric, has a lot of rhetoric, like we were discussing, but they have no policy, no governance. And again, like I said from the beginning, if you here, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, but they cannot beat Mayor Muriel Bowser because the city is cleaning up leftist initiatives. They cleaning it up right now. Initiative 82 is a leftist initiative. And that shit about to have restaurants in shambles. I said, let it do as it may. You want to know why I say let it do as it may? Because the people have to learn. When you just be throwing stuff at the wall, governance is not about that. See, in these shows and all this other stuff, confidence and just blind bravado is cool. But when we're talking about the complex issues and fixing societies and managing human desire and competition and ecosystems, we need people who think. And sometimes maybe a little bit hesitant to be like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to do that. Because then we think about how that's going to look 10, 20 years later. And also, how is the opposition or anybody who opposes us going to use that against us and weaponize it against us? Like, yeah, consuming trillions and trillions of dollars of value in a company is cool, but how do you get there? Who can weaponize that? And that's what we're here right now.
Like, can I shoot the left a little bit of bail?
Shoot them.
While still giving them a good critique. Because I want to hone in, because you said they have no policy. I would agree, but the left does have policies. The problem with the left is that they spent So the problem with the left is that while Trump was doing all of these things, instead of informing people about the history of what democratic policy were during their time, they just spent their full campaign calling everybody stupid. That is the left's issue. The left insists on calling everybody that does not agree with the left stupid. And you can only get but so far when you call American people dumb. Everybody can't be dumb. Like literally, they spent. I'm watching. You've seen this campaign. They've literally told everybody who didn't agree with whatever policies that they put forth was stupid. They're going to take away this. They're going to take away that. And though it ended up being true, you cannot call people dumb for not understanding these things. Why not get out and educate the people about the history of democratic policy? Why not say we are the party of the minimum wage? That is democratic policy that we put forth and that we championed. Why can't you tell people about the history of workers' rights, the history of
because
Social
they
Security,
because
the
they caught
history of affirmative action, the
because they
history of
caught
Social
and playing the
Security?
game. They caught and playing the game, and that's
But
why I say
those
they
are
don't.
the actual policies. Like
Yeah, I got you,
if
but
you
they
not, if
don't
you not,
got it. If you can't do shit, if you not going to do nothing to get that joint in there, it's pointless. It's dead in politics. It's useless. I can have the idea, but if I can't do nothing to bring it forth, it's useless.
yeah,
If
but
I'm going,
like
if
if
I'm
you,
going to concede to the old guard every single time, if I'm going to concede to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and fucking the likes of Joe Biden and them every single time, what point is me even thinking and having my own thoughts?
this is true. I just feel like the left has gotten into this nihilistic position of just if you don't agree with us, you're stupid. If you agree with anything that the right says, you're stupid. And it's like, no, some of the stuff that they say, they make a great point. And instead of calling people dumb and telling everybody they're stupid and fear mongering and telling us everything is going to go to shit, why don't you educate those same people about what it was that you did that was good, what these policies were and why they needed to be protected, and champion something instead of taking every opportunity to call people stupid? Because that's what I'm telling you, that's what the left has become, in my opinion. They're just sitting there telling everybody that they're dumb instead of trying to win people over. They're waiting for the world to burn and calling people stupid while it burns.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. And that's why I said what I said about them not being able to beat a candidate like Muriel Bowser or any of the centrists, who I don't even necessarily agree with. But they don't like building, like you, to your point, coalitions with people who think differently from them, who might have different interests. Like a lot of leftists believe in class only and won't even acknowledge race, but want a racial, multi-ethnic coalition, when race was one of the first class systems in America. So it's like, they, like you said, they lose a lot of people when it comes to their approach to it. And that's why I feel the way I feel. I don't necessarily disagree with their positions, but I think their political strategy and how they approach politics is very naive in the most part. And again, like I said, I don't know the Mamdani gentleman, but I think it'll be more the same as it relates to him getting in, voting, and not necessarily having a coalition to build on, because the way that you start is the way that you finish. And a lot of it is about excluding people versus including people. Because again, they would watch this video and sit up here and be like, oh yeah, we can't talk to him. When the whole time, I would sit, we can make deals and figure out who gonna get what, how we get what. But just like I said about the immigration video, we need something. My community needs something. It can't just be class, because everybody winning except us still. So it's like, and they also don't realize that class approach is allowing all of the issues to keep persisting, because y'all not really acknowledging and going to the root and going to the core. What you essentially doing is just tweaking and working around the edges, which is what centrists do. And so it's like, it's cool. It is what it is. They got it. But I'm going to go ahead and finish up because apparently, man, my neighbors wanted to turn up today. They waited until I got on this jump, man, which is crazy. Crazy. But if you're watching, man, like the video, share the video, leave a comment. Tell me, do you think leftists still have a chance to, you know, hold power? Of course they still have a chance, but I'm talking about probability and likelihood versus where they sit right now within like the next 5 years. And tell me what you think if they can have a candidate that could beat him, Muriel Bowser, which, like I said, I highly doubt and I don't see it coming. But y'all go ahead, enjoy the rest of y'all Sunday, man. Thank you, Quan, for coming on. Appreciate you for having a conversation with me, bro. And I will see you all later at another moment in time.